Hello, this is Scripps talking about music. Before we knew it, the new year 2024 has dawned. I hope all the plans everyone has made for this year go well. And today, I've put together some recommended albums from the many that were released over the past year. Shall we get started right away? The best progressive album of 2023 is Riverside's ID Entity. Unlike other prog rock bands' complex and abstruse albums that drag the listener into a quagmire, this album has a neat and refreshing composition that avoids such chronic pitfalls. It captures both mass appeal and progressive creativity. A sophisticated album that hits two birds with one stone. If you're new to prog albums, this one has such a low barrier to entry that I'd highly recommend it as an easy listen. I'll give it 1 pepper. It takes a very accessible approach, yet is also highly original, not tiring easily on the ear. However, as is the fate of such ear-pleasing mainstream music, its shelf life will likely last about a month. In contrast to most of the disappointing power metal albums released in 2023, The Awakening proves once again that Kamelot is the undisputed champion of melodic power metal. With their flashy, grandiose and intense band sound combined with poignant, addictive melody lines, this album's lavish textures create a true masterpiece filled to the brim. If you're not already a power metal fan, the unrelenting symphonic band sound may initially overwhelm, and vocalist Tommy Karavic's voice may be polarizing. So I'll give 2 peppers. With its addictive melodies, you can savor the diverse textures across the album like enjoying an array of flavors. The shelf life is 1 year. You can enjoy the rich atmosphere for a long time. The best pop-punk album of 2023 is Blink-182's One More Time. While capturing that early 2000s pop-punk vibe, it also has a polished flow that doesn't sound dated to Gen Z today. With solid musicianship, melancholic vocals, and a whopping 17 tracks spanning diverse moods, this abundant album is in a league of its own compared to other punk releases in 2023. The upbeat, breezy song development typical of pop-punk slides right into your ears pleasantly. I'll rate it mild for going down easy. Despite pop-punk being a somewhat tired genre, I don't think anyone could make a better album. That's how polished it is. As expected, with its diverse mix of song moods and textures, it offers enjoyment even when picking tracks selectively. Thanks to this variety lending itself to repeat listens, I'd give it a shelf life of 1 year. The shoegazing album of the year is Parannoul's After the Magic. Some may say it got a boost just from hitting #1 on Rate Your Music's shoegaze charts. But by blending characteristics of shoegaze, indie rock, and various other genres, then steeping it in Parannoul's unique sensibilities, they've created something pure, lucid, and mystifying that you won't find in other shoegaze albums. With its crisp, delicate, and wistful atmosphere that still feels remarkably cohesive, I'd be compelled to name this as a recommended listen. You can easily immerse yourself in the indie rock vibes with the shoegaze, dream pop, and other flavors adding spice rather than complexity. The different elements complement rather than overwhelm, making for an accessible listening experience. I'll give this 1 pepper. It's an indie rock album with a lot of depth worth revisiting. One could say it's too nuanced just to call the album of the year. Of course, if you miss the spice provided by the blended shoegaze and other genres, it could come across as ordinary indie rock. But for listeners who appreciate those additional dimensions, there's plenty to unpack for a longer shelf life. Let's say 1.5 years. The alternative garage rock album of the year is Måneskin's Rush. Awash in the 2000s garage rock revival vibe, the album's raw, unprocessed sound is impeccable. The loose energy aptly conveys the band's high energy level, a rough around the edges rock feel that's hard to find in today's trendy bands. Yet, it's simultaneously polished into a very stylish and clean refinement. Packed with catchy melodies and rhythms that make you bob your head, and also containing very emotional rock ballads, you could say it's an enjoyable album to listen to. The primal yet clean sound captures the ear with straightforward melodic lines. It's a mild taste with no spiciness. There are quite a few decent tracks, but the simple song structures tend to get tedious. The bright side of the straightforward melodies that are easy to remember is that it makes for a refreshing listen, even if it gets tiring soon. I'd put the shelf life at 1 month. I've chosen Avatar's Dance Devil Dance as the groove metal album of the year. Once a melodic death metal band that later absorbed alternative influences to develop their own distinctive colour, Avatar had great success on the rock charts last year with The Dirt I'm Buried In, a crunchy, bouncy guitar song almost devoid of metal elements. But unlike that song, the album overall is quite heavy. Yet within the brisk, satisfying pace typical of groove metal, there's a cynical humour hidden here and there that grabs your ears. It's a shame there wasn't one more fluffy song like The Dirt I'm Buried In. But with the band's ingenious and diverse experiments in punk, ska, a cappella, and more that you rarely see in metal, I want to give them high scores. As they built their sound primarily on extreme metal, it may take some time to adjust to the intense textures. I'll give 3 peppers. There are amusing twists holding interest, but at its core, it's Melodeath-flavoured alternative metal. The brisk, grooving music leads the charge. If you listen hard for more than 2 weeks, fatigue may set in. So we'll say its shelf life is 2 weeks. I've chosen Smashing Pumpkins' new album Atom with the return of nearly all original members, including guitarist James Iha and drummer Jimmy Chamberlin, as my 7th recommended album. The singles Beguiled, Empires and Spellbinding alone can blow you away, but the jaw-dropping move of packing 33 tracks into one album brings confusion alongside the enjoyment of selective listening. I want to applaud Billy Corgan's unstoppable creative drive, but I can't help wishing there were fewer songs with higher completion and accessibility for each one. Also, long-time Pumpkins fans may feel baffled, thinking, what's with all the synth pop? The style has changed a lot from their previous work. There's endless nitpicking available, but just as much experimentation and killer mainstream tracks to justify being a recommendation. The biggest flaw is it's so hard to get into. Too many songs with incoherent styles make it tough to focus. It's meant to be a concept album, but the concept is unclear. That said, it does contain quite a good number of quality tunes, yet it feels roughly 2% unsatisfying. I will give 5 peppers. Despite the barrier to entry, it's an album you likely won't revisit much once getting used to. Overall, it lacks some cohesion and absorbing power. I'll give it a 2-week shelf life. Like the charming album cover showing a car miniature submerged with its headlights aglow, this is an enjoyable alternative pop album blending pop punk and synth pop. While not groundbreaking, Weather's Are We Having Fun also doesn't elicit any particular regrets. It's as if the album intentionally amplified the rock vibes to highlight the sophistication of the songs. With its trendy feel and bouncy, refreshing tunes that get stuck in your head, the neatly arranged tracks can be hummed along to at any time without pressure. That's why I chose it as a recommended album. It encapsulates the sentiment of typical college rock for teenagers and those in their 20s. Innocent, cheerful, and quintessential. It's mild without barriers to entry. It's fun, but offers nothing special or new. An easygoing album to last about 1 week. The best electronicore album of 2023 is Enter Shikari's A Kiss for the Whole World. Though they emerged back when the trancecore genre was trending, they had little to do with trance. With this album, they prove once again that they're truly pioneers of electronicore, not just saddled with the misleading trancecore label. Unlike most current electronicore bands, their electronic palette, drum and bass, dubstep, techno, trance, etc., may be stuck in the past, but it's tastefully incorporated like a seasoning to elevate the songcraft rather than overpower. On top of that, the diverse blend of genres is atypical for a post-hardcore band, keeping it interesting throughout. Some tracks even add orchestral and brass elements for refreshing results, For fans only familiar with current post-hardcore, Enter Shikari's genre fusion may seem unfamiliar at first. I'll give it 2 peppers. The variety of ideas could offer novelty for those bored of the current scene, so I'll give it a 1-month shelf life. The best melodic death metal album of 2023 is Insomnium's Anno 1696. Though Melodieth, Insomnium leans doom metal, building atmosphere and exploding emotion rather than charging ahead briskly like typical melodic death metal. Anno 1696 strongly reflects folk elements for an even more sentimental, melancholic effect. In that sense, it exudes the fragrance of atmospheric black metal as much as Melodieth. Among the total 8 tracks, the 3-track run of White Christ, Godforsaken and Lillian is sure to enrapture extreme metal fans, absolutely essential listening. As the album meticulously layers quality tune after quality tune in harmony, it offers deeper flavour the more you listen. While it's hard to say where Anno 1696 will rank in Insomnium's ongoing series of masterpieces, it certainly deserves recognition as the top Melodieth album of 2023. As a melodic death metal album, it naturally earns a baseline 3 peppers. With its high completion retaining interest for a year of repeat listens, it's a must-have for enjoying epic Nordic grimness. Are you looking to satisfy that missing 2% from the Foo Fighters? I recommend Mammoth WVH's Mammoth 2 as the top post-grunge album of 2023. Mammoth WVH is the one-man band of Wolfgang Van Halen, son of legendary guitarist Eddie Van Halen. This sophomore album bears a strong Foo Fighters scent with its straight-ahead, hard-charging flavour. It's as if the Foo Fighters reincarnated for the Gen Z, packed with a crisp, hip sound that's simple yet modern. The opening 3-track run of Right, Like a Pastime and Another Celebration at the End of the World shoots straight through the heart, perfect stress relief tunes. Other gems like I'm Alright, Erase Me and Waiting make this a spirited record I can easily recommend. It's a mild taste. The contemporary alt textures will enrapture your ears. The mainstream appeal makes it easily enjoyable at first, but prone to faster exhaustion. We'll give it a 2-week shelf life. I've selected Sleep Token's Take Me Back to Eden as another top album recommendation for 2023. Technically progressive metal, they mash up a bizarre blend of alternative metal, post-rock, gent, prog, indie rock, black gaze, and more with electronic pop, R&B, even hip-hop elements. Usually attempts to fuse extremely disparate genres like this fail to achieve coherence, meeting critical scorn. Experimentation for its own sake doesn't merit praise if the end result is just a muddy mess. Yet somehow, Sleep Token pulls it off. Listening, you'll exclaim, "Hey, this actually works!" It's like they dissected various rock flavours, then reassembled them with a very pop-oriented sentiment. I said it has a pop appeal, but the music is quite unfriendly. The unusual fusion approach alone has novelty, but their shadowy, mysterious vibe in expressing the songs can deter first-timers. I'll give it 4 peppers. Once you adjust to the oddly inaccessible angle and can enjoy the tunes, it's not an album that sticks with you for long. More than straightforward rock metal fans, it seems suited for hipsters craving something fresh, yet soon moving on. I'll give it a 1-month shelf life. I'd like to select Royal Blood's latest album, Back to the Water Below, as another top alternative album pick for 2023. With explosive bass tones and razor-tight drums packing each song, you'd never believe they're just a 2-piece. They bash the speakers with a relentless intensity that's sure to get anyone's blood pumping. On top of that, their quintessentially British knack for melody helps make the album more refined and appealing. The aggressive rhythms powered by overdriven bass could overwhelm some listeners, but I'll give it just 1 pepper. The punchy bass and drums interlock infectiously to fill the ears, while Mike Kerr's otherworldly vocals blend in fantastically. It's a great album, but I'll limit the shelf life to 1 month. This is a very distinctive band overlaying grunge's signature thick, rough, rebellious sound with hints of refreshing, dreamy shoegaze elements. The greatest strength, yet also drawback, stems from retaining a 90s sentimentality. For those who lived through the 90s, it sparks nostalgia, while younger listeners might appreciate the retro appeal. However, since they don't follow current trends, I wonder how intensely they can compete with today's stylish, technologically adept hitmakers. Still, the blend of grunge and shoegaze alone makes them worth a listen. If you don't get that 90s alt vibe, I'll give this 2 peppers. You might jam along enjoyably for 2 weeks or so, but I wish they offered something more impactful than just the grunge shoegaze mixture. A few more ear-grabbing, easy listening tunes like Planned Human Combustion would have been great. I've selected Beartooth's The Surface as a recommended post-hardcore metalcore album. Its strength lies in avoiding any particularly weak spots through consistent, solid songwriting and polished production for a streamlined, no-frills feel. However, that same consistency makes it a tad too safe and middle of the road. Many post-hardcore metalcore records dropped in 2023, but few left much of an impression. As a genre that stayed hugely popular for a while, the key is fitting catchy, fresh melody lines into aggressive core rhythms, and Beartooth incorporates bouncy, emo pop-esque melodies nicely. If you can handle post-hardcore, the barrier to entry is low thanks to infectious vocal melodies. But for the uninitiated, the intensity could overwhelm, so I'll give 2 peppers. It should hold interest for a solid 2 weeks without growing tiresome, but as typical of the genre, fatigue likely sets in before long. That concludes today's reviews. I hope 2024 brings lots more great music. This has been Scripps. See you next time for more reviews.